Business News now. Stephen Carroll back with us on set once again. We're going to start off with those incredibly huge fines imposed on banks in the United States.
Yeah, it was described by the FBI as criminality on a massive scale. 6 banks are to pay more than $5.6 billion for manipulating foreign exchange rates. 4 of those will plead guilty to conspiring to fix prices in a market that's worth more than $5 trillion a day. The authorities have described the scale of the misconduct as breathtaking. Naomi Lloyd has the details.
They thought they could get away with it, and for 5 years they did, cheating their clients, rigging foreign exchange rates and inflating their own profits in what was described as a brazen display of collusion. Now 6 of the world's largest banks have been fined nearly $6 billion.
Almost every day, for more than 5 years, traders in this cartel used a private electronic chat room to manipulate the spot market's exchange rate between euros and dollars, using coded language to conceal their collusion. They acted as partners rather than competitors in an effort to push the exchange rate in directions favorable to their banks, but detrimental to many others.
Those others, the US Justice Department said, were consumers, investors and institutions around the globe. 4 banks, JP Morgan, Citigroup, Barclays and the Royal Bank of Scotland, are pleading guilty to conspiring to fix prices and rig bids in the forex market. And a 5th bank, UBS, to rigging benchmark interest rates. All 5 are being fined by the US Department of Justice and the Federal Reserve. The biggest fine for Barclays, which also has to sack 8 of its employees. Separately, the Bank of America is also being fined by the Federal Reserve. Investigations are continuing into Barclays and RBS in the UK and US, with a warning from the Attorney General that any reoffending will be taken extremely seriously.
Let's take a look at what's happening on the markets next. And interestingly, those banks, the UK banks that were affected by those fines, their shares had actually risen as that announcement was made just before the markets closed in London. Today, they're trading pretty flat. This is the picture at the open of the European markets. As you can see, not much movement in any of the main indices. Paris and Frankfurt trading down, while London is trading up. Over in Asia, a disappointing survey of the manufacturing sector in China had been the focus for markets there. Shanghai up over 1% on the hope of more stimulus from those disappointing economic figures.
Here in Paris, next business leaders, they've gathered to discuss the issue of climate change.
This is in the run-up to the Paris Climate Change Conference that's happening in December. Businesses are keen to be involved in those discussions, which will have an impact on their operations. One of the controversial issues being talked about is taxing carbon emissions. Now, one of the company bosses attending is the chief executive of consumer goods group, Paul Polman. He spoke to France 24.
If the politicians in Paris say net zero emission, then the investments that business will make will accelerate and we will have a faster transition. The industry is calling for a price on carbon. What you don't measure, you don't treasure. And we need to start measuring carbon, just like already about 30 countries do in the world, without any problem.
You can see that full interview later here in France 24 at 11:45 Paris time. We'll also be covering that meeting in our new business show, People in Profit, which airs today at 4:45. Let's move on now to look at some of the day's other business headlines. The German train strike is over. Rail operator Deutsche Bahn says the union representing striking drivers has agreed to mediation of their dispute. The stoppage was the 9th in 10 months in the standoff over pay and working hours. 2/3 of train services were cancelled on Wednesday. The boss of Airbus in Britain has warned of huge economic risks if the UK votes to leave the European Union. Paul Kahn was speaking at a conference of Welsh business leaders on Wednesday. Airbus employs some 16,000 people in the UK. And the music streaming service Spotify has announced it's expanding into video. The company has partnered with media companies, including US and British TV networks, to provide them with content. The service is to be rolled out globally in the coming weeks.
And finally, Stephen is looking at an American company that's trying out rather a new style of management. How does this work?
I'm curious to hear what you think of this. The company, first of all, is called Zappos. It's an online retailer that's based in Las Vegas. And the Wall Street Journal today tells the story of how they've gotten rid of traditional management to introduce a philosophy called holacracy. And the idea is that workers decide for themselves what work needs to be done based on a 30-page constitution the firm has drawn up. Now, employees actually aren't too happy about this. They say that the system is confusing and time consuming as they have to spend more time in meetings talking
Yeah.
about this. Wall Street Journal is saying that 14% of the company staff have actually decided to leave the company because of this policy.
Because they don't want to be a manager. Can you decide nothing needs doing and just
Well,
go home?
presumably, that's the
You
thing.
can. Okay, should we go then?
Let's.
I know what needs doing. Bill Lupton with the international papers. Is that a
do
corny
it.
link or is that a corny link?